Our story begins with a man who works in an insurance company, and he wants to achieve his target in order to be promoted, but he's not willing to give up, and he is really able to achieve the target, and he is happy because he will finally be able to be promoted. But suddenly, we see a thief coming out of a store, and he has a gun, and we see an officer outside the store as well, and he is injured, and we meet the officer who is going to catch this thief. But he grabs him against his will. A bullet exits and enters the body of our overpowering valley, so this person will be C. Hawked because he believes he is fulfilling the begging, but unfortunately, he dies. But suddenly, this person seems to change and move to the illusion of the writer, and we meet the writer telling him, "Look, your life is really miserable. I will give you another world full of magic." And suddenly, he finds this same person in another place, and his appearance will be completely different. And before he even realizes what happened, we meet a giant dragon flying above him. He rises after it, and notices that the shape of his clothes has changed. So we meet the anime writer and tell him, "I will give you the basic information. If you prefer, he is here. Say, open the case to see your status." Then he says, "This person has opened the case, and we tell me that the case has already appeared, but there is no name or job from the beginning, but the rest is up to you to decide. Maybe you can enjoy this life more than your first life." The important thing is that after a period of thinking, this person calls himself Lucille, and after that, he chooses Lucille to stay with him so that he can support the team and earn money. And of course, he also, because the boy saw the dragon and does not want to die again. And then we look at the hands of Lucille, and he will have 3 coins, and he would like to see a job in order to try to adjust his condition. But he is walking on a corpse dragon. He runs as fast as he can. The important thing is that after that, Lucille arrives at a city gate, but when he looks at those who are entering, he finds that they are looking for papers for the security and handing them money and entering. Lucille is afraid to get this personal ID. We meet Lucille thinking, and suddenly we meet him saying, "Unfortunately, I do not have an identity, and this is because I grew up in a small village. When I grew up, I became a therapist, and if I had the opportunity, I would like to work in a clinic." I told him, will he get a result or not? But if that is the case, I will run away. But suddenly we find someone who entered him and takes him. "You are the one who wants to join the clinic." So he tells her, "Lucille, oh, I came hoping that I will find a job here." Because he still hasn't paid the entrance fee, we meet the guards, he says to Lucille. The therapists don't pay fees, so Lucille thanks him, and he's still gonna walk, but he finds the girl walking, so Lucille goes after her running, but suddenly he falls on the ground and we know that he hit someone, and when he texted this person, we found him picking him up. "Let's go. How do you think? How are you going? Where are you going?" So the girl we saw a while ago comes and we meet her, and she says to the adventurer, he will go to the Healers Guild. So Lucille tells him that he is sorry. So the adventurer annoys him and says, "Don't be sorry. Even if you remain an adventurer, I won't leave you." After that, the 2 adventurers walk, and the second girl comes and we meet her. She tells Lucille that if the adventurer, Musou, had been in danger to him, she would have dealt with him. Lucille was surprised by her self-confidence, and he felt that she was a strong girl. The important thing is that after that they walk and continue on their way. So Lucille asks her as they are walking why he has not paid the entrance fees to the city. So the girl tells him that the Empire is the one that collects these fees and that healers have a special status because of a few, since they deal with issues of life and death. Oh, and specifically because you are in the Republic of Coral, home to the headquarters of the Healers Guild, and when they enter the guild, we meet the girl who welcomes him to the guild, so Lucille is very happy. The important thing is that after that, we meet the receptionist who came and gives Lucille a piece of paper for him to fill in with his data. Lucille knows how to read, but suddenly we find the words translated into Japanese, and he is required to write, for example, his gender, age, and country of origin. So Lucille begins to write what is required of him, but we hear the receptionist say to the second girl, "If you had known us, Lumina, that we would have sent you someone. Lumina would pick her up, don't worry." I was like that. I was in the area, so Lucille understood from the way the receptionist spoke to her that Lumina has a disgrace in the city here. The important thing is that after that, Lucille focuses on the paper, but he arrives home and does not know what to write, and decides that he is making himself invisible. And we meet him and say to the receptionist, "I can write in my home field that I am from a village. I know to write a village, and that's it." And then he hands over the paper and the receptionist goes to finish the rest of the procedures. So Lucille goes to Lumina and picks her up. "Come on, the city here has a name." She is surprised. Lumina is ignorant of Lucille with things like this, and she transports him to Miratoni City, the Republic of Coral. Lucille thanks her and tells her that he will try to do what he can. The important thing is that after that, the receptionist returns and gives Lucille the guild card so that he can use his magic. So Lucille tries to focus in order to try to use magic. It contains all his data, so the receptionist takes it again and tells him to wait for a while. So he says, "Lucille," to Lumina, "Come on, did you take the card again for me?" Lumina tells him to enroll you in the magic network so that you can use the card in any place. Then the female employee returns and gives Lucille the card and welcomes him to the syndicate. Then we find Lumina saying, "All right, since everything is fine, so I am marginalized." So Lucille shouts internally, and we find him saying to himself, if he curses, "It is now impossible for me to find a job in a clinic quickly." And he calls her and tells her, "I have not used magic before, so I do not know how to learn." So you are surprised, Lumina, and she says, "How can you not use magic?" So Lumina says, "What do you mean?" So he says it. "Lucille, I'm sorry, but there were no magic books in my village, and I was the first healer there, so we will meet." Lumina tells him, "Sorry, I forgot that you don't know anything." So we meet Lucille, and he says, "It is useful to train in a clinic if I don't want to learn the basics." We meet Lumina, and she says, "Look, you have 3 choices. Bardi means that you train hard until you learn magic, and you prefer to implement the techniques until your magic ends and you go back to learning. And when your magic comes back, you prefer to train until it ends again, and so on. And the loan is that you take a loan and enter the school of magic and learn magic in 3 years, and the guild will take a platinum coin from you. And the vocational training is that you work and learn in your free time." So Lucille thinks and finds that the vocational training is the most suitable thing. Why? But the problem is that he is not a guarantor if he will be in free time, and the loan is known that it will not be the best solution. And this Spartan training will be like studying for the exam. And after more thought, he decides that he chooses the Spartan training. So the receptionist is surprised because this is the worst one among them. The important thing is that we meet her after that. She says to Lumina, "I will leave the rest of the matter for Rom here." And then she goes to El and Shiel and says to him, "My name is Korar. Come after me. I will take you to your room then." Lucille thanks Lumina and tells her that he will keep trying to return this favor to her. The important thing is that Lucille goes to his room and finds that it is a small room with no bathroom or window, but there is a bed, a candle, and a book. So Lucille grabs this book and takes out a book of magic spells, and he opens the book and decides that he will continue to learn in order to finish everything in 10 days. He decides to try, and he tries to do the healing technique, but unfortunately, he feels a terrible failure. But he also feels something that has come out of his body, so he looks after that. Lucille is on the state of magic and finds that he has taken 5 points. But of course he will spend 5 points from his magic, and he will have 54 points left with him, which means that this is only 9 times left. So he uses all the points and keeps doing the healing magic technique. And then he finds himself very tired and cracked in a Western way. But the important thing is that he waits until he collects magic points again, and he decides that he tries to meditate a little and tries to improve his skill with his sense of magic. The next day, Lucille wakes up and gets annoyed because he is late, but he thinks that this is in the other world, and he thinks that he will wake up and find himself in it again. Meditation, and he decided to take these steps, and suddenly we find that his level has increased, and his case has numbers that are much better than the stupid numbers that were in the first place. But suddenly he interrupts his thoughts by knocking on the door, and he says, "Lucille," to whoever knocks, "Enter." Then a girl other than Cora enters, and we find her inside him serving breakfast to Lucille. So he asks her, Lucille, on her name, and we know that her name is Monica. The important thing is that the next day, Lucille tries the healing magic again and sees that he has reached any, and he finds that he is finally able to use the technique. So he is very happy, and then he goes down to the receptionist and finds that Core is not there, and Monica is the one who is standing and blesses him that he is still able to use magic and transfer him. I was able to know that you are finally able to use the healing technique. That is, suppose your account is a Platinum M currency, so I am surprised. Lucille is in her hands alone. As for the one who comes, I am supposed to go to Lumina to tell me to do the right thing. We meet Monica and she picks him up. It was you who came 2 days ago with her. Sorry, take the money again. Lumina will keep your account and room account for 10 days. Lumina makes her a lot of calculations, so we meet Monica, and she says Lumina is the commander of the new regiment of knights in the city, and he is very happy with the luck skills he has, but he doesn't know what he can do after he finishes these 10 days, and he decides that he is going out to try to promote himself as a healer, and he is in the street and he remembers what Monica said when he asked her on the subject. If the therapist takes a lot of money, then Monica tells him that to using the healing skill is only a platinum coin, and they cry. There is a group of injured people entering them, so the adventurer will leave them. Bazin, and he gets annoyed because he told them not to accept dangerous missions because they are still beginners. But there is another one of the adventurers annoyed because there is no clinic now that they can go to, and we know also from what he said. Monica, the Healers Guild, doesn't treat anyone, except that they are very malicious, so they tell Lucille that he will not be a malicious healer like them. So he goes to the adventurers and tells them that he can heal beginners. Then Lucille goes to one of the beginner adventurers to treat him, but he can't use the incantation properly because he's nervous. But this time I counted on him because he wants to focus so he can do it right and not finish the points, and he uses it again and he can treat it, and then he starts to treat them, but unfortunately he lost a few times because of the tension, and the one who stayed is an adventurer one. Lucille tries to get him, but he falls while walking from fatigue and can't move. And he gets very upset because he won't be able to treat the last one. And then we see Lucille in his room, and he gets very annoyed. The next day, Lucille goes to the Adventurers Guild to join it, and he reaches the receptionist, but there are rabbits in it, so Lucille is dazzled. He looks shocked. He doesn't realize that the adventurers he met were cats. The important thing is that we meet the receptionist who takes out a paper for Lucille to fill it in and exchanges him with a card so that he can pass magic he is in it. And after he finishes, Lochelle, we will find the receptionist to pick him up. Since you have the skill of martial arts, I will be able to register you in the guild. After that, she will explain to him the system of missions. When he takes something and finishes it, he gets a reward. Well, if you are unable to carry out the task, the female employee will transfer him. At that time, I will pay fees, and she will be rewarded, so keep in mind. Lucille will ask her and tell her that he has received treatment requests for you before, so the female employee will be surprised. So Lucille will tell her that I am a therapist. Oh, the girl is surprised, so he tells her, Lucille, you can introduce me to someone who teaches me martial arts, because there is no one in the mind of the employee. So he says to her, Lucille, if you can know someone, you will do the right thing with me. Then the employee tells him, look, a decision that I can make for you, but wait a while, and I will come back to you. After a while, the employee returns with an incomplete adventurer, but his color remains green, and he looks like the Hulk. Lucille tries to control himself and introduces himself to the adventurer, telling him that she is a healer and wants to promote himself. He asks him to teach him martial arts more, and in return he will give them the required treatment. It seems you have the skill of martial arts, but I have a therapist who wants to learn martial arts, so he tells him, Lochelle, why the treatment will not be necessary in a real battle, and if I go out on a small mission, weak monsters can kill me, so that I can defend myself. I want to learn martial arts, so the adventurer agrees with him in his training department, and as a reward, why does he get a platinum coin one day? This deduction of training fees from the salary. So Lucille agrees and says that he can start with him after 6 days. And then the adventurer tells the employee, Nanella, that she takes care of him, and we find her welcoming him again. So Lucille is happy, but his jealousy becomes apparent to the rest of the adventurers, and he has evil intentions. So the adventurer calls them when we met them. They all made a fool of themselves and walked. The important thing is that after that we meet the adventurer. He tells Lucille, my name is Broad, and I am the head of the trainees in the guild. I will be waiting for you in 6 days, and he will walk after that. The important thing is that Lucille goes after that, and we find him saying to himself, until now, everything is fine, but if my magic can't stop me, they won't believe in me. I have to use every part of my energy to make this never happen again. But suddenly, we find the door is banging, and Monica will be coming to give him dinner. The important thing is that after the 10 days are over, Lucille goes down to walk, but he finds the receptionist, Kororo, Hayao standing, so he goes to Lucille and thanks her, because thanks to her, Lucille and the rest are able to learn some magic in order to become a beginner. So we find Kororo picking him up. You assure him that you will be a good healer, so he walks after her, Lucille, after he thanks her and gets excited because this will be his start. Then Lucille goes to the Adventurers Guild, and the first time he enters, he finds something to eat. He looks at him, and they talk about him. So Lucille is surprised and thinks that maybe this is happening because he is weak, for example, or something, and this is bullying, but he doesn't worry too much about it and goes to the receptionist, who is the only one other than Nanila. The important thing is that we meet him and tell her that it was a request from Broad, that he is training him in martial arts. The female employee recognizes him and takes him to enter through this gate so that he can go down to the training place. And then Lucille goes down, but we can't find anyone there. But we hear Broad's voice behind him, and he's at the stairs, and we find him looking at Lucille with killing intent and telling him, it's good that you didn't go out right now. So Lucille gets worried about him, but he has no other solution. So he shuts up, so we find Broad picking him up, this training hall. It's true. We will monopolize it for us. So Lucille is surprised because he is literally the only trainee, but we find Lucille thanking Broad. So he tells him, Broad, you saw the killing intent in my eyes, and you didn't run away. So Lucille tells him, I need this skill so that I can live better, so I wish you would train me as much as you need. So he says, Broad, words are not actions, but I won't be lenient with you at all, and don't you think of running away? Then we find Lucille running through the ruins that are made of wood, and Broad tells him to increase his speed so that the orcs and goblins will not kill him, and Broad does not let Lucille rest and let him continue running until he gets tired. And then we hear the sound of shouting heard in the guild and outside the guild, and this will be the sound of Lucille's yelling because Broad is allied to open the basin for him so that he can run faster, but this will also help him in making his movements easier and better. The important thing is that after he opens the sink for Lucille, we find him telling him, look, I want you to hit me, and it doesn't matter how you will do that. Lucille tries to lead him to the man, but he pushes her coldly and tells him, you were joking, right? So he tells him, Lucille, why is that why I asked you to train me? I want to reach a stage where I can protect myself in front of an adventurer, whoever betrays what I fear. So he tells him, Brood, that's okay, go on and try to hit me. So Lucille tries to hit Brood, but literally, Brood keeps pestering him, and when he doesn't like the situation, he hits Lucille with the palm, so Lucille falls all the way, so he coldly picks him up. The trouble starts when you get tired. First, you have to learn how to move. Try to imagine that you are hitting me. Lucille tries to enter after her and utter this, but unfortunately, Lucille also knocks him down in the end. Broad is impressed by Lucille's resolve, and we find Lucille getting up and getting ready again and going to hit Broad, and after a few hours of training, Lucille will be on the ground and unable to move, so he tells him coldly, I must admit that you have a good determination, but I want you to tell me which is the most important thing in the fight, so he doesn't respond. Lucille continues with Broad and tells him that you will not die and that you will not be injured, but what you learn today is that you will not be used in battle. You must decide this until it becomes a habit for you, and I'm sure you will know the reason. I want you to watch, learn, and keep trying this on me. So Lucille tells him, okay, then Brood tells him, now, after you took yourself, it was time for the second round. Lucille was shocked because he thought that this was the end of the day. And after the second round, Lucille will be on the ground and he can't move. So he says, Cold, it's okay. We're like this today. So Lucille says to himself, I can treat myself and hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So he tells him, Cold, no. If you avoid the magic of treatment on yourself and take physical therapy, Your physical strengthening skills will increase. Don't treat yourself when you get seriously injured. So Lucille tells him, okay. But I'm surprised that there is no one else here besides us. So he gets cold. Oh, we don't get anyone new these days. The adventurers whose rating is low do not have enough money. They focus on real combat instead of training, so we will meet. Lucille remembers the adventurers he saw and treated a few days ago, and he realizes that this is definitely difficult for them. And then we meet him saying, I have to keep my magic in order to use it on the adventurers. So he says, Brood, can you promise me something? I want you to promise me that you will treat anyone regardless of their race. So Lucille says, oh, sure. And at the same time, we would meet adventurers and injured people, and they would ask about free treatment. So he would. Go. Lucille runs to find out what injuries they have. So we find that the girl in Dib bit her, so he heals her. Lucille goes along and then asks who else is infected, and we find that all of them are already infected, so he treats them. Lucille, all of them. And after he finishes, we meet Broad. He says to Lucille, you're going to be very busy for the time being. So Lucille laughs and tells him, I can only use the healing technique 8 times in a row, but that will be enough. So Broad tells him, as long as you can do this, there is no problem. But I have a suggestion. I want you. You use the healing technique until your magic ends, and this is to enhance your strength, as we said today. What do you think of this? Lucille thinks and finds that the issue will be like an overtime, but he has no solution except that he trusts Broad and agrees. Then we meet Broad, and he says we have to strengthen your strength for training. So Lucille is shocked that they have not started training, and then Lucille looks at his hand, and we find him saying, sure, my martial arts skills will be better. And also, if I treat people also, my magic will be stronger. And if I start meditating to strengthen a particle, then I will hit a group of birds with a single brick, and he will be very happy. So he says, Cold, you look a little daring, but if you want to train hard, you must live here in the anicaps. Lucille tells him, the problem is that I don't have money. So he tells him, cool, no, you'll be free. It's jealous that you'll have 3 meals. So Lucille gets shocked and says, the offer is very nice, but something else will happen. So he tells him, cool, I want adventurers who don't have them, they prefer to be there, and I can do this while you are there. So Lucille agrees that he is there and that he treats anyone who needs him too. We meet Broad, after which he says to Lucille, I won't let you get out of here at the time of your training. Lucille understands that in this way he can stay here for the rest of his life. And when we enter the night, we meet, Brood, and take Lucille to his room. So Lucille picks him up. He is there someone tomorrow. I will treat him. He says, Brood, you will be busy tomorrow, and then he goes and leaves Lucille to sleep. So Lucille tries to sleep, but he can't sleep. So he looks at the clock, Cam and Bella. He says, it's 9 o'clock. So he gets up and takes advantage of the time and starts training. The next day, Cold comes and Lucille wakes up for breakfast. And when he goes to the restaurant, he introduces him to the cook, Golger, and then we find Holger pouring a cup of strange substance for Lucille to make him stronger. But the problem is that this substance smells very bad and no one can drink it. So he tries Lucille, and although he can't stand the taste, he just drinks to be stronger, and because he's afraid of Golger. And after he drinks it, he literally has hyperactivity, and he feels the strength. So he, Brood, is surprised that he drank the substance. After that, Lucille goes to training, and he literally keeps getting hit by Brood, but Lucille keeps getting up to complete his training. But suddenly, we find someone who has come and is asking for treatment. So he goes to Lucille to treat her, and we find the girl very affected. So we find her leader telling him that you are not like other people, and you will introduce us to Fairness the treatment. And he asks him if they have anything to do. Can they come again or not? So he tells them, Lochel, oh sure. So the girl jumps and gives him joy. And at night, he looks at Lucille while he is going to his room, but it happens that someone is behind him. And when he looks behind him, he meets adventurers, and as soon as he sees them, they run away and hide. So Lucille goes to his room, and he does not understand where. The next day, we meet Lucille, and he tells Broad about what is happening and that there are people watching him. So we find Broad twisting his face. So he tells Lucille, you were the one behind this matter. So he tells him, Broad, sorry, but everyone says that you can run away and most adventurers are not born rich. and that is why they accept requests those who are full of dangers and suffer serious injuries. So Lucille understands that as long as he is here, they will be reassured. Ed, so that they will be treated. So Lucille tells him that I will stay for a month until the month is over. Stop monitoring so that I will not escape, and keep in mind that if I find someone watching me, I will drink your disgusting juice against him, and I will keep you also drink it, cold. And then the month will pass, and Lucille will have training, treatment, and juice for pigs. And we will meet Lucille, and he will talk to Broad and tell him that I can go to the Adventurers Guild and take missions, and God willing, when I get money, I will come back to you again to complete my training. So he tells him, Broad, you are right, you don't have money, so what would you do? I find Broad, picking him up, take them, and pay them to the guild, and I think because the death rate for adventurers has become less, he picks him up, Lochel, but there are too many, so he picks him up, Broad, you still have weak martial techniques. The important thing is tomorrow we will complete our training, and if you agree, go and pay the money. So Lucille thanks him, and he goes to do that. And after Lucia comes back, Broad is waiting for him and takes him to training, and in order not to run away, he gives him Broad a weak-level magic teaching book as a gift, and tells him to read it and learn from it. So Lucille thanks him, but he can't be happy because we find Golger interrupting this moment and giving Lucille his shitty juice, and we meet Broad, and he says to Lucille, let's drink it and come after me. So Lucille drinks it, and literally he is unable